Hey, what's going on, people? It is PJ Nugget 333 here, coming at you with a new review with a movie that I very much enjoyed, The Hateful Eight, written and directed by the one and only Quentin Tarantino. So before we get started here, I would like to say I've seen all of Quentin Tarantino's movies. My top three favorite probably being Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Bastards, and Reservoir Dogs. Now, this one does not quite compare to those, but it is definitely a good watch and definitely a good addition to the Quentin Tarantino lineup of his films. Now, this is going to get a little spoilery. I'll put a link in the description when I'm going to start talking about those. This is going to be the non-spoiler part of the review, but I definitely want to talk spoilers because, you know, in a Quentin Tarantino movie, anything can happen. So I think it's properly due that we do talk about spoilers later in the review. So I will get to those later, and I'll leave the link in the description when the review will start to get a little more spoiler-tastic. So to begin, I think that the performances in this movie were outstanding. Tarantino knows exactly how to pull a great performance out of his actors. We've seen it in all of his movies, every single one. He knows what he's doing. He has a natural talent for it. And I know he did go to an acting school for a few years. I think it was like 1 year. But 1 year, that's it. He knows what he's doing, and it's amazing. Samuel L. Jackson is the lead in this movie, and boy, does he do good. We haven't seen him in a lead role in a Tarantino movie since Pulp Fiction, and you can even argue that that role wasn't a lead role. In this movie, he is in there, he is a main character, he knows what he's doing a great job acting, and Samuel L. Jackson still got it. Tarantino knows how to pull a great performance out of an actor, and this is clearly shown here. Now, the suspense in this movie is fantastic. We've seen this in earlier films like Inglourious Bastards, where you have these tense scenes, these moments, these conversations that go on for 5 minutes, and you're just sitting there in your seat, and you want the conversation to end because it's dragging on so long, but at the same time, you know, you're wiggling in your seat. You don't know what's going to happen next because this conversation's getting so tense. And there's a few of those moments in this movie, and it almost kind of brings you back to that Inglourious Basterds feel, which is probably my favorite movie of Tarantino's, which I love. I love those tense moments where you don't know what's going to happen next. And if it's a Tarantino movie, anything can happen. It can end in a shootout. It can end in the two guys giving each other a hug. You never know. So it plays in perfectly with this movie, all the suspenseful moments. The cinematography is really beautiful, too. I'm glad I saw this in the theaters because I was thinking about waiting for it to come out on Netflix and watch it on my TV, but it was a very good idea to see this in theaters. I highly recommend seeing it in theaters before it leaves because the cinematography is too good to miss. Now, I would say about 75% of the movie takes place indoors, but those outdoor scenes where you see, you know, the outside, it's marvelous. These long, wide, establishing shots, especially in the beginning of the movie, make for some beautiful eye candy. It's awesome. Now, you got this good storytelling coming from Tarantino, and you know it's a Tarantino movie because, you know, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if a main character is going to get shot. You don't know if a new character is going to come in. You never know what's going to happen, ever. It's so unpredictable, and the way Tarantino tells the story is so good because you think it's going one way, takes another direction, hits you on the head, and you never know what's going to happen. There was a moment in the theater where I was really wondering how this could play out, and I have all these scenarios going on in my head, but I never knew how it was going to play out until I actually saw it, which was amazing. And when a movie can make, you know, you think and make you do that, you know, you really know it's a good film. The violence is over the top, but in a very good way. I love Tarantino violence. It's so incredibly over the top, especially in his newer movies. Like, I think that kind of started with Kill Bill when he got over the top with his action, but I like that. I'm a very stylistic guy. I like stylistic stuff, so I really enjoyed that aspect in this movie. And I know Tarantino usually does stylistic stuff. He did have a lot of stylistic things in there, not as much as I like though, and I'll get to that later. But as for the stylistic things, he has this really cool, you know, title card that comes over the screen. And it's this very old, kind of like 40s, you know, 1930s, 1940s looking title card. It's really cool. You know, he has his, you know, every once in a while, a character will say something, and then, you know, Tarantino will show you. And then he also has the movie divided in chapters. And those are kind of some of the stylistic things he does, and I really like that. But I didn't see as much of that in this film. Now, the reason why I love Inglourious Basterds so much is because there's so much style in that movie. I mean, you have the whole Hugo Stiglitz bit. You have, Christopher Waltz talking about how this Jewish group was killing Nazis and wearing their uniforms, and they show you that, and they do all this cool zooms and all this crazy stuff, or they'll do that in Kill Bill, but they didn't really have as much of that here, which was okay. I didn't, the movie was still great, but I would have liked to see more. They do show you one aspect where they show you kind of like a flashback of what something Samuel L. Jackson does, and I'll get into that later when we get the more spoiler talk, but I mean, otherwise, there was really no other stylistic things he did. I mean, there was a little slow-mo every once in a while, but otherwise, that was it. And I think the movie definitely could have used more, especially for a Tarantino movie. This is where the review is going to get a little more spoilery, so spoiler alert. So as I was saying earlier, they do show you a kind of like a flashback or a cut to something that Samuel L. Jackson does, which is very vulgar, and I will not mention it in this review, but it does work as a stylistic aspect, but he doesn't include that much in here. Now, as I said earlier, the violence is great. You got all these main characters that you never thought would die. Kurt Russell dies very early, which was so, because you see him in 90% of the trailer, you think he's going to be alive most of the time. Nope, he dies 60% of the way through. Samuel L. Jackson does great. I'm kind of happy I was happy he lived. I thought he would die. Well, it kind of alludes to him living. I don't know if he actually lives, but I like the development of Samuel L. Jackson's character, Warren and Maddox, who was the racist character in the beginning. I like their development and how they kind of become partners and friends because they both know that they're innocent and they work with that and they take down these bad guys, and it's awesome. One of my favorite things about the movie was how they show you what happened before these characters get to Minnie's haberdashery. I think it was chapter 5, where they show you what exactly happened before. And I love that. I love that Tarantino aspect, because, he wouldn't, no other director would do it in the film like that. They would just explain it. But Tarantino visually shows you what happened to these people, these innocent people who got killed, and these villains, these pieces of garbage who came in there and just started shooting up the place. So I love how they showed that. I also love the inclusion of Channing Tatum. I thought he'd been a little more of the movie, but I kind of understand why they didn't show him too much in the trailer, because he wasn't in there that much. But that was okay, because even though he was only in there for a short period of time, you knew he was a piece of garbage. So he died, and he deserved it. As for the cons, I didn't want to explain this in the pros or the non-spoiler part of the review, because the cons kind of shows the bad things about the movie, and when you know some of the bad things about the movie, that also kind of ruins some things, just like the slow beginning. The beginning's very slow, which was okay, but I found that some of the conversation in the beginning wasn't really necessary. That was okay, because when they got to Minnie's haberdashery, things started to pick up, but it definitely could have been trimmed down at that beginning. I'd say the movie was about 2 hours and 50 minutes in its total runtime, something around there. It probably could have been chopped down to 2 hours and 40 minutes, maybe 2 hours and 45. You could have trimmed some of that out of there. Otherwise, the film was a great ride. I really loved it, and I would give The Hateful Eight a 3.5 out of 4. It had everything Tarantino, despite a little style taken out of it, not as much as I would have liked. I would have liked a little more style. And also, the beginning kind of drags on a little bit, but otherwise, the film was a great ride. I had an amazing time with it, and I would highly recommend it, but especially for the people who have strong stomachs, because this is not a good movie for the weak of the stomach. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.